Be it a flood, a fire, an earthquake, or a tornado, natural disasters have the power to destroy your home in a matter of minutes. But there are people who stood up to the elements. These are the people who protected their homes against all odds. Let's take a look at the top 15 ingenious ways people have saved their homes. Number 15. Dutch cables. It goes without saying that strong winds and roofs don't exactly mix, and in some cases a particularly strong gust can get under small spaces between the roof and the wall and lift it straight off. Yet in order to protect against this, many have begun to install Dutch cables. Put simply, these are stainless steel cables made with rust-proof galvanized metal, and they're generally strung out across a roof and anchored down using a turnpike attached to a beam. And while this still allows wind to get under a roof, the steel cable prevents it from flying right off. As a result, this can be a lifesaver for many houses because it not only makes repairing the roof easier once a storm is through, but also prevents water from rain or waves from pouring in, making the house far less likely to suffer from severe water damage. Number 14. Spark Arrestor. While wildfires can easily burn things down such as walls, window coverings, and roof tiles, what many don't realize is that their chimney can be a prime point of entry for flammable material. That's because the opening at the top can let in unwanted pieces of debris that have been set on fire, with this having the potential to fall through and then set fire to the inside of your house. However, this can be prevented by installing a simple spark arrestor, typically consisting of a double layer of metal mesh with a cap on top. The mesh is effective in catching embers, while the mesh opening allows gas from the chimney to escape. As a result, while some older homes don't have them, they've now become almost standard across new developments to ensure that people's homes do not unnecessarily burn down. Number 13. Plastic wrap. While we're all for DIY projects, this one is certainly out there. That's because in the lead up to Hurricane Dorian in late 2019, a Florida woman tried to protect her home by using garbage bags, duct tape, and a few hundred sandbags. In short, she used the duct tape to plaster heavy-duty garbage bags around her property, and then put one layer of sandbags below them to keep the bottom sealed. And while we don't know whether it held up, for the sake of both her and her home, we hope that it did. Number 12. Lally Columns. While basements are often one of the most secure places to hide during a natural disaster, they too can fall victim to a collapsed roof if improperly secured. Thus, many people have saved their basements from being destroyed by simply adding lally columns to them. In essence, these are large columns that go from the ground to the ceiling of the basement, with them being installed into the beam. Thus, if pressure were to be put on the ground floor from wind, water, or seismic activity from above, these columns give said ground floor that extra strength needed to stop it from caving in. Number 11. Roof straps. Tsunamis are nothing if not destructive, and in the event of one battering a home, the large waves and strong winds that come with these natural disasters can often cause a roof to collapse. As a result, in order to stop this from happening, a simple roof strap can be used to anchor a roof to a wall. Put simply, these are pieces of galvanized sheet metal that have a curve so that part of the surface is on the roof beam and part of it is on the wall. Then, in order to attach them, all you must do is simply fasten them in place. And once this is done, these straps will be able to help transfer the pressure of a wave or wind burst from the roof into the walls. As a result, these straps make it much less likely that your roof will topple over. Number 10. Watergate. While the word Watergate may not exactly have the most positive connotation, it turns out that government conspiracies aren't the only thing that the name is associated with. That's because Watergate is the name of a product on the market that uses a rather clever design in order to hold back floodwaters. In short, it is a portable, self-inflating, and reusable water barrier that is far superior to traditional methods, such as using sandbags, rock, and dirt dams. That's because rather than hold water back as wall would, Watergate actively allows water to flow into it. You see, Watergate works by first opening up when the water hits against it. Then, as the quantity of water increases, it uses the pressure of the water to stabilize itself and to fully deploy, eventually opening up into a fully extended gate, allowing it to hold back water. The best part about it is that it's not only effective, but also very economical. That's because the lightweight bags stick together thanks to Velcro and can be easily put together in a matter of minutes. They're also reusable and don't require any paper cartridges to be refilled. Best of all, when you even further consider that they can also be used to create small dams and reservoirs on your property. When not being used as a floodgate, it becomes clear that this product really is worth every single penny. Number 9. The pendulum. While this only really works with apartments and large skyscrapers, the implementation of pendulums have effectively made many of these vulnerable buildings earthquake-proof. In essence, this method involves suspending an enormous, typically ball-shaped mass near the top of the structure. In order to keep it in place, steel cables support the mass, while viscous fluid dampers lie between the mass and the building it's trying to protect. Then, when an earthquake causes the building to sway, the pendulum moves in the opposite direction, dissipating the energy and stabilizing the structure. This is effective in not only stopping the skyscraper from toppling over, but also from preventing any shaking in general, as the pendulum can move to precisely offset each small movement. One famous example of such a system in place is atop of Taipei 101. Located in Taiwan, it used to be the world's tallest structure, supporting 101 floors across 508 meters. Now, such a height is extremely vulnerable to earthquakes, so in order to offset them, it used 8 steel cables to suspend a 660-ton gold-colored ball atop of it, making it the largest and heaviest tuned mass damper in the world. It truly is a sight to behold, and to the relief of the building's developers, despite the high cost involved in installing the pendulum, it has certainly done its job. We are constantly adding more people to the Top 5's production team to bring you all the best content. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on and hit the like button. Number 8. Sideplates. At face value, a building with concrete foundation may seem pretty earthquake resistant. After all, there aren't many foundations that are much stronger than this one, and you'd assume that such a foundation would hold strong in case of an earthquake. However, what many don't realize is that while concrete foundations are great for supporting the weight that comes vertically from the house via gravity, they can actually cause a house to crash against it during an earthquake because the force of these natural disasters moves laterally. As a result, a simple fix against earthquakes is to install side plates to connect a foundation with the rest of the house. Put simply, these are steel pieces of sheet metal that are connected via very deep screws, and while they may look rather simple, they are great in ensuring that weight during an earthquake will transfer into a foundation rather than grate against it, making a house significantly more earthquake-proof. While it may not stop a house from shaking, it will certainly help prevent it from toppling over. Number 7. Earthquake valves. Contrary to popular belief, structural damage is not the most common way in which homes get devastated during an earthquake. Instead, due to the fact that the shaking often causes gas pipes to burst, the gas that flows out will often spill and then cause a fire. As a result, earthquake valves can be an ingenious yet simple way to protect against this phenomenon. Put simply, they have a ball at the top that is attached via a magnet, and if any shaking occurs, the ball will drop and seal the valve, ensuring that no gas flows out. In order to install one, it simply has to be screwed into where your existing gas valve is, and can be done in relatively simply affordable as a DIY job. Best of all, if the ball is either shaken unnecessarily or if the gas needs to be reopened after an earthquake, all the homeowner must do is turn the knob to reset the valve. As a result, this simple little tool can be a lifesaver for those living in earthquake-prone areas. Number 6. Boarded up windows. Although this isn't exactly the most innovative technique in the book, boarding up windows is a tried and true method in hurricane-proofing a home, so that it's still in one piece even after weathering a terrible tropical storm. In essence, the idea behind boarding up a window is that flying debris won't come and smash the windows in, which would not only cause glass to spill in, but more importantly, would likely lead to internal damage. However, despite it being a relatively common practice in hurricane-prone areas, there are many ways in which boarding up windows can be done, so that you're not simply hammering unsightly nails into your home's walls. Yet amongst all the possibilities out there, one of the best methods is to have a builder install detachable screw holes into your door and window frames. That way, when you'd like to board them up, you simply have to take off the plastic caps that hide them and screw in the wood. With this being a wise choice because it not only prevents said frames from being damaged, but is more likely to hold thanks to the strength of the screws. Therefore, if you haven't done so already, we suggest installing these savvy screw holders before it's too late. Number 5. Wet floodproofing. While it may seem a little bit counterintuitive, wet floodproofing is a method in which you purposely allow your home to flood in order to keep it safe. And while it may sound a little strange, the idea is that by having openings within your home that will let in some water, the pressure of the water will be more evenly distributed. As a result, rather than water pressure beating against your walls and foundation, which can cause them to collapse, the water would flow through your property, preventing anything from toppling over. Now, this is usually done by having slits that would allow water to enter lower-lying areas such as basements and garages, with the location being determined by a metric known as the base flood elevation, or BFE. This level is essentially the elevation at which flooding will occur during a 100-year storm event, and as such is often recommended that slits allow water to reach a level of BFE plus 5 feet in order to fully ensure that water will be able to be evenly distributed. Now, of course, this may make it seem as if areas that are below the BFE plus 5 feet must be barren. However, wet floodproofing states that anything will not be significantly damaged by water can be replaced here. For example, people will often place rooms such as cellars, dining rooms, and even indoor pools in these areas, because even if flooding occurs, the majority of furniture located at this level could be salvaged, even if soaked by water. However, it is highly recommended that materials that would be unsalvageable if waterlogged be reserved for only areas at a BFE of plus 5 feet, with this including anything made with wood, wallpaper, and carpet. And if possible, is advised to have any electrical components also above this level. Thus, if a flood were to assault your home, wet floodproofing can make it probable that your house will stay standing. Number 4. Dry floodproofing. While wet floodproofing may look a little strange to many, dry floodproofing is an ingenious yet relatively standard way to protect one's home from flooding. Put simply, it involves using a number of sealants that allow water to hit a home's walls, but do not let the water in. And generally speaking, cement or asphalt-based coatings are the most effective sealant. However, due to these often not being the most aesthetically pleasing, a masonry veneer coating will often be applied on top to make the sealant more attractive. And as an alternative, clear coatings such as epoxies and polyurethanes can also be applied instead. However, they tend to be less effective. For additional protection, dry floodproofing often involves changing some aspects of a home. For example, low-lying windows will often be replaced with concrete or brick slabs. Interior drainage is often installed to catch any water that does end up leaking. And backflow valves may even be installed as additional precautionary measure. However, while this method may seem superior to letting your house partially flood, there are some severe limitations with it. In particular, it is recommended that only houses built on a concrete slab without a basement be considered for this type of treatment. Otherwise, it's much harder to implement. Additionally, it often only works with brick houses, as weaker construction materials such as wood simply won't hold up against pounding floodwaters. To top this off, if floodwaters tend to get to a level that is over 3 feet, oftentimes dry floodproofing measures became useless due to the increased water pressure. As a result, it certainly isn't the right option for every home. Number 3. Carbon fiber wrap. While there are a number of earthquake safety codes that new buildings must adhere to, buildings of decades or even centuries past often didn't get this treatment. As a result, they're especially vulnerable to earthquakes. And there are even many that stand today that have unstable foundations thanks to earthquake damage. And while tearing down the building and creating a new foundation used to seem like the only feasible way to repair these buildings, carbon fiber wrap has emerged as a new yet simple way to strengthen these older structures. Now, the carbon fiber wrap in question is not just any old carbon fiber, but a specially made material known as fiber reinforced plastic wrap, or FRP. Manufacturers produce these wraps by mixing carbon fibers with binding polymers, such as epoxy, polyester, vinyl ester, or nylon, to create a lightweight but incredibly strong composite material. Then, in order to retrofit an older building, engineers simply wrap the material around the concrete support columns of the buildings, and then pump pressurized epoxy into the gap between the column and the material. Based on the design requirements, engineers may repeat this process 6 to 8 times, creating a mummy-wrapped beam. And while such a process may seem a little shoddy, the available research indicates that these support systems end up having significantly higher strength and ductility as a result, with the effect being so drastic that one study found that simply wrapping fiber-reinforced plastic wrap around the weakened columns of a highway bridge made them 24 to 38% stronger than they were unwrapped. As a result, this wrap has seen increased use in older homes in order to allow them to stay standing for years to come. Number 2. Fire-resistant landscaping. Forest fires can be deadly in many regions of the world, and unsurprisingly, having trees located around your home can put your house at risk of catching fire. Yet in order to stave off against this threat in an effective yet aesthetically pleasing way, Fire-resistant landscaping, which is the practice of making design choices and growing plants that will minimize the risk of a property fire, has become more and more common in areas at risk of these ferocious fires. Now, regarding design choice, there are many simple ways in which to protect your home. Perhaps the easiest is to try to limit the plants around your home, as stone patios, walkways, and walls are much more effective at blocking a fire than a burnable plant would be. You can also try to keep all fire-prone plants a minimum of 30 feet away from your home and ensure that everything planted within this zone is spaced as far apart as possible to prevent a fire from burning them down via a chain effect. As a final note, it's also advisable to regularly maintain your property, as loose pine needles and large hanging branches from unpruned trees can easily cause a fire to spread faster than it should. However, a lot can also be said for fireproof plants. Now, while these plants can still catch on fire and burn down, due to the fact that they generally contain lots of moisture, they have a reduced risk of contributing to the fire, and are also often drought resistant, which protects them from drying out in very hot temperatures. Now, there are countless plants that fit the criteria for being fire resistant. However, some of the most common include plants such as lilacs, raspberry bushes, roses, and poppies, and trees such as black oaks, maples, river birches, and poplars. As a result, it really is not as hard to make a beautiful backyard that is fire resistant. Number 1. Sandbagging. Taking the first spot on our list is none other than the flood protection mechanism that has stood the test of time: sandbagging. Now, in essence, sandbagging is simply the act of building a large sand wall around your house in order to stop water from entering. Having been used as far back as the Revolutionary War, despite being simple, this method is tried and true. And due to it only involving the work of a few volunteers with bags and shovels, the method can be employed quickly and effectively. Best of all, considering that bags can often be bought for less than 50 cents each and that the sand itself is usually not too costly, you won't break the bank while creating this flood-proof barrier. However, this still begs the question as to how sandbagging actually works. Now, sandbag walls are effective primarily thanks to two main factors: their material and their weight. Regarding material, the sand in the bags is typically made from tiny particles of rock, and thus when water rushes against them, the heaviness and durability of said rocks makes them unlikely to wash away. Yet perhaps more importantly, the fact that these bags are porous is what really makes them effective. That's because the sand's porous nature generally allows it to soak up both the floodwaters and all the sediment within this rather polluted H2O. This is important because it creates a seal as more sediment flows in and as the sand gets muddier, making it unlikely that the bags will simply wash away. Yet in order to make the sandbag method especially effective, there are a few things that should be kept in mind. First and foremost, it's advisable to use polypropylene plastic to lower the risk of the bags decomposing, as an old-fashioned burlap bag may eventually break down due to mold. It also is advisable to use coarse sand rather than fine sand, as this will be more durable against the elements. And most importantly of all, is it's highly recommended that you build in a pyramid-like shape, as this will help support the structural integrity of the sand wall. However, despite their effectiveness, the reality is these sand walls can never be perfect. As a result, if the floodwaters are more than a few feet high or are likely to stick around for an extended period of time, then they may very well collapse. That's all we have for you today, everyone, and thank you all for watching. Let us know in the comments down below which ingenious method you thought was the most creative. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash the notification button so that you never miss out on another one of our videos. Until next time.